Hello everybody, welcome to Culebra. We are in the Britten Norman Islander today, going to take a look at the new 55222 driver from NVIDIA today. I'm going to do a hop here from Culebra over to Beef Island. So let's get going here. Go rotate, external power supply on, rotating beacon on, mixtures and props full forward. Master and battery switches on, fuel pumps on. Starter hood covers open, mags on left. Turn the fuel valve, open the fuel valves. And I forgot to disable all of this. All right, take a quick look outside. Make sure there's nobody out there to kill or maim. Toes on the brakes, and let's crack the throttles. May as well do that. Oil pressure is good on the right side. Left side is clear. Good start. Oil pressure is good on the left side. Mags to both. Close the starter hood cover. Fuel pumps off. Check the fuel pressures. Fuel pressures are good. Lean the mixtures for taxi. Avionics master coming on. Let's turn the external power supply off. Nav and strobe lights coming on. So we're good to go. Like I said, this is I did a stream with this driver yesterday, and it ran just fine. But we'll just do a little bit of a test flight today and see. Go transponder squawk altitude. Let's bring the throttles back a little bit. You can hear them; they're kind of rumbling here. Live weather here. Culebra looks well clear. All right, so toes on the brakes. We'll get this going here. Yeah, it's going to be eastbound today. What are we doing? Who knows? I don't know. You guys know? I have no idea. So, I've got a couple other neat tricks up my sleeve coming here pretty soon. I noticed that you guys liked the Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 videos. We're going to do some more of that type of thing, which is good. It should be fun. And let's get going here. Should be about a half-hour flight. This is one of my favorite little airports. It looks like up at that end we've got a... Looks like these two windsocks are kind of not agreeing with each other, if I do say so. Which is possible, by the way. I mean, especially in that valley up there, you can get some... I'm sure you can get some interesting winds. There's a tree up at that end of the taxiway that sometimes is problematic, so we'll just come out here on Alpha 1. Props coming... flaps coming down. We'll go fuel pumps back on. Landing light is on. This is the Islander. We got enough room here. One of those things I wouldn't do in real life, but it's a sim, so should be alright. We'll do a short field takeoff here. Approach end looks clear. Yeah, this is really actually not such a great idea, but that's alright. Alright, heading indicator checks with the runway number. Toes are on the brakes. Takeoff power is coming in. Takeoff power is set. Engine instruments are in the green. Release the brakes. And get a little bit of right aileron in here. Airspeed alive. And let's go commit aviation if we can. The chair just slid right there, which didn't help. departure here out of Culebra. Pull the manifold pressure back. We will pull the props back. 400 feet AGL. Drop the nose a little bit to pick up some speed. And it'll bring the flaps up. And then we shall resume a climb attitude. Sim is looking very, very nice. 100 knots cruise climb is good. 100 knots will give you just 2 reasons you want to do cruise climb. You know, that VX, which is your best angle of climb speed, and VY, best rate of climb speed, you only want to use either one of those two until you've cleared whatever obstacle that you're trying to clear, which in this case was the windsock, curiously enough. And 1,000 feet AGL, we'll go fuel pumps off. Let's check the fuel pressures. Fuel pressures are looking just fine. And we'll head eastbound here. So you don't want to stay at whatever it is. It's probably, I don't know, 70 knots, 75 knots in this airplane, I'd have to guess. But once you get clear of whatever obstacle you're dealing with, get your nose down into cruise climb, which in this airplane's 100 knots. And there's 2 reasons you want to do that. Number one, your engines are air-cooled, and therefore they do appreciate some air to cool them down. That's why you don't see smart pilots sitting on the ground with their engines running for long periods of time, because they're cooking them. But the other reason you want to do it is for safety, which is you want to get the nose down so you can see over the cowling. You want to be able to see over the nose of the airplane. 50 feet below your cruise altitude. Bring the power back. 23. Bring the props back just a little bit. That was too much. And we'll push the nose over. Level the airplane off. And pick up some speed here. So those are the 2 reasons why you want to do it. You want to get some air into your engines to cool them down. You also want to be able to see over the cowling in case, for birds, other traffic, that sort of thing. Hitting things at low altitude is no good. Hitting things period is no good, but I'd be particularly unenthused about hitting something at like 300 feet above the ground. Alright. Let's just get this trimmed out here. So, one of the interesting, so I do see a little tiny bit of ghosting on the needle there as it's going up and down. And I'll tell you something I found rather interesting is that I've found that the ghosting tends to come and go. I have days where I see it more on the needles than anything else, really, more on the vertical speed needle than on electronic displays per se. And it tends to be kind of intermittent, which I don't know whether that makes any sense or not. Probably not. Let's clean the mixtures here a little bit. Watch the EGTs go up. And this is a process that I would actually take a little more time with if it was a real airplane. I wouldn't pull you kind of pull pull the mixtures back a little bit. See that little bit of ghosting right there on the vertical speed? Kind of pull the mixtures out, let them sit for a little bit. Pull them out a little bit more, let them sit a little bit more. You don't really continuously pull them out that far in the real airplane. Now we push them forward, just get about 50 degrees reach of peak, and I'm happy with that. Little goose more here on the manifold pressure. There we go. Goose more on the props here as well. You can hear them out of sync. That's a little better. Okay, now let's check which direction this thing wants us to go. 093 on the heading. Works for me. And yeah, we're a little bit right of course, but that's okay because I want to get a little look at some scenery here today. We've got a beautiful flight. So we'll just continue here a little bit south of St. Thomas. And that sort of thing that you're seeing right there, the cone, nose cone of the prop there, which is not called the nose cone of the prop, by the way. I just can't think of it right now. That's from the frame gen mod. That's not from the driver. But if you noticed a little bit ago when I mentioned it, you'll see intermittently some ghosting, but it tends to come and go, which I find rather interesting. I don't even know precisely what settings I'm running right now because I'm always kind of changing them. But I know it's not DLDSR. I know that because I was streaming yesterday, and I don't use that when I'm streaming. So yeah, I mean, so far this driver is incredibly smooth. This flight is incredibly smooth. Scenery looking very nice. And this is what altitude tends to do. It's either going to creep up or creep down. You really got to stay on top of it. Because I mean, 100 feet off is, or 80 feet off as the case may be right now. That's no big deal. I don't. If you don't correct it, if you don't stay on top of it, you're going to wind up 200 feet off, 300 feet off. That's sloppy flying. I don't like sloppy flying. So yeah. So we did the Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 video the other day, and I thought it was very interesting. And the approach I took to that video wasn't necessarily the headlines, right? Not the kind of the big things that most people talked about when they did their videos on that. What I was interested in is the details and kind of reading between the lines of what they were saying. And after having seen the reaction to the video, I think there's enough meat on the bones of what they gave us in the various dev streams and announcements. Really only basically one big announcement that they did, then a couple tidbits in the dev streams. I think there's enough meat on the bones that I can put together some individual videos on like flight model, on a little bit of a stutter right there, almost like a hesitation right there with a stutter, that I can put together some individual videos on some specific topics, ground physics, and get those out to you guys. Another thing that I can't, and actually before I move on, all of the information I used in that video was all straight from the horse's mouth. I didn't use anything from any other, websites, or or message boards, or any other YouTube content. I just wanted to look at exactly what Jorg and his team had said specifically, and not anybody else. But I was going to also mention that they did talk in one of the dev streams about the issues with the DX12 tiles, and it's basically that they basically have two sets of data, or two sets of sources of the Bing map details, and that's one is from Asobo and the other is from Bing itself. Or maybe one is from Microsoft Flight Simulator. I don't know if it's Asobo specifically, but like from Microsoft Flight Simulator, and then the other is the one from Microsoft, or from Bing. So there's two sets of data, and they're not quite synced. One is further updated than the other, and so what happens is sometimes the data will get pulled from, part of the data will get pulled from one source and part of the data will get pulled from the other source, and that's when you wind up getting two different tiles side by side. And the interesting thing about Asobo, and I give them a lot of credit, because I think they've stuck with it. I think they've done what they said they were going to do. And despite, a pretty serious amount of, you can hear those props out of sync again. A rather serious amount of kind of negativity from some corners of the flight sim world. I really think they've done a good job. You can see some ghosting there on the vertical speed indicator again. And see, that's what I'm talking about. Is interestingly, it'll be there sometimes, and then other times it's not. But I think they've done a really good job of delivering what they said they were going to do. But at the same time, I don't know whether the information doesn't filter through to the top guys, or what the story is, but they're clearly of the opinion that the tiling issue has been resolved. And I mean, that was as of the March developer stream. And I don't know whether maybe they've kind of changed their tune on that, or they've realized since then that that's not the case. But the bottom line is it hasn't been resolved. It's 10 times worse than it was in the Sim Update 15 data than it was, in Sim Update 14, which I didn't have a ton of it, but it was certainly an issue. So I give them credit for following through. I think they've done a good job, but they do at times seem to be a little bit out of the loop in terms of what's really going on. I don't quite understand it. Don't quite understand it, but in any event, lots of good information. As we come over the top of St. John here. This is illegal what I'm doing, by the way, because there is right below us, a national park. Well, I think the national park is actually here. So maybe we're still alright. But what I do know is that we can now start pulling out the manifold pressure a little bit, and we'll start making our way down here. Beef Island off there, not in the farthest distance, but right here is our destination, and beyond that, the island off the furthest in the distance there, right off the nose, is Virgin Gorda. This is the U.S. Virgin Islands, and just right across the way here is the British Virgin Islands. So, bring the props back just a little bit. Lovely flight thus far. So I did see just a tiny bit of a hesitation earlier. I wouldn't quite call it a stutter. It just kind of hung for a second. But we'll mixtures forward now. You can hear those props kind of warbling. They are out of perfect sync. And you can see it if you look at the gauge, but you can also hear it quite easily. So that was a payware scenery that we left from. It was a payware scenery that we overflew in St. Thomas, and this is a nice payware scenery that we're flying into. So it should give us a bit of an indication here. There was nothing specific to Microsoft Flight Simulator in the driver in question. Keep an eye on the manifold pressure coming down. The manifold pressure is not coming down, we are coming down, and therefore the manifold pressure is going up. See a little bit right along here, you can see some ghosting along the edge. And actually that reminds me, I'll show you. You can see right along the trailing edge along here. Bit of ghosting there, but that doesn't really bug me. And there's Road Town, capital of the British Virgin Islands. And I'm going to bring those manifold pressures back even further, bring the props back a little bit more. Get the nose up, get us slow down, let's go a few pumps on. And we'll just hold double flight here at 1500 just for a moment so we can get some flaps in. And there's 115 knots, we can get the first notch flaps in. And keep the power back a little bit more. I have to say, I just saw a little bit of ghosting here along the needles on the manifold pressure gauge. So it does seem a little bit ghosty. A little bit ghosty from this matter of perspective. I mean, I really don't. These things really don't bother me. I know they bother some people incredibly. Just holding that nose up a little bit. Get those flaps in here. And once we clear this ridge, I'll go forward on the props. There used to be a boat sticking out of this hill right here. It's not there anymore, which is good. Alright, we'll let the... Yeah, good. Alright. Now... Make sure the props full forward, fuel pumps are on, flaps are set, seatbelts are secure. And we can now bring the nose up here a little bit. Plenty of energy. We've got some height here we can work with. Alright. Pull some energy out so that we can get nose up a little bit, get some speed bled off here. Alright, 80 knots I'm happy with, one red. And now we can get a feel for the wind. Maybe a little bit out of the left. Yeah, it feels like a little bit out of the left. Your nose is always going to tell you where the wind is coming from. Just stay on center line and look where the nose is pointing. A little bit of a left wind, but not much. Just a little bit of a breeze. Power coming out. Power coming out. Power is out. Yeah, you know, I told myself I need a little bit of right rudder, and I just didn't do it. The one thing that'll tell you, because it's sometimes difficult to tell whether you are aligned with the direction of the runway. The one thing that will tell you is when you touch down, even if you're just slightly off, like I was there, I wasn't massively off in terms of being aligned to the runway center line, but I was off enough that I should have corrected. Now that we're off the runway, I can put the flaps up, turn the fuel pumps off, mixtures are cleaned. The one thing that'll tell you is when you touch down, which direction does your plane start traveling on the ground? As soon as I touched down, you know, because I was in a crab as I'm flying, so there's nothing really to worry about as far as that goes. When you're in the air, but as soon as you touch down, you can't go forward with your nose pointed off to the side anymore. You can't go directly forward with your nose pointed off to the side anymore. So whichever direction your nose is pointed in, the plane's going to turn in that direction as soon as you touch down. And so that's the real moment of truth. So essentially, if I'm looking at that line, this is what I was doing coming down. I was coming down the final approach like this. There's the line, and that's where my nose was pointed. As soon as I touched down, then I went forward in that direction. And what, you know, so anyway, I'd like to get a little bit of flying info in here. Throttles to idle, mixtures to idle, cut off. Set the parking brake. Lights coming off. Fuel pumps are off. Flaps are up. We will go avionics master off before you turn the mags off. Master and battery switches off. Go boarding steps. Whoopsie, we'll go boarding steps. Last thing I need right now is engine covers. And we will open the doors and let the people free. So, beautiful airport here, by the way, by SLH Sim Designs. But yeah, there's definitely some ghosting. But like I said, it's weird. It's intermittent. I mean, I made a lot of power changes on that flight, and you didn't see consistent ghosting on this manifold pressure gauge, but I did see it at one point. Same thing with the vertical speed. So there's a little bit there, and even kind of the windows and the trailing edges. Um, it tends to come and go. Um, but performance-wise, very very smooth. And I mean, if you're not having any issues with the current driver, I wouldn't hesitate to update. Um, I think basically the last 3 drivers, there really hasn't been anything for Microsoft Flight Simulator. Um, I think if you're one of the people who like to keep DLSS updated, make sure and make sure that you're on the 3.7, etc. Then I would update it and just keep everything up to date. But in any event, here we are in Beef Island, Tortola, and I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. Hope you got some information out of this that is useful to you, and we will talk soon.